The Panthers wrap up the preseason on Thursday night against the Pittsburgh Steelers here in Uptown Charlotte. How have things been going on in Pittsburgh? We'll ask someone here on Locked On Panthers.
You are Locked On Panthers, your daily Carolina Panthers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into another edition of the Locked On Panthers podcast, a part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, as always, Julian Council, talking Carolina Panthers with you every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and yes, of course, Friday, your team every day. That's our motto here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Thanks for watching the show right here on YouTube and listening wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. Be sure to follow me, Julian Council, over on Twitter and Blue Sky at Julian Council, because beginning on Wednesday, September 3rd, the weekly Wednesday mailbag is back all throughout the regular season here on Locked On Panthers. But in the meantime, you can still hit me up over on Twitter and Blue Sky at Julian Council in my DMs, or just adding me with any thoughts, any questions that you have pertaining to, of course, your Carolina Panthers. And we prepare for the Panthers preseason finale on Thursday evening here in Charlotte. No, the starters will not play. So anyone who's going out there on Thursday night, sorry, you're not going to get to see Bryce Young, not going to get to see J.C. Horn or Derek Brown, but you do get to watch plenty of guys who are fighting for the final roster spots. And it is something that actually will matter. Dave Canales was asked on Tuesday afternoon whether guys could still win jobs based off of their performance on Thursday night. And he said yes. So I absolutely believe it's going to matter. And there are some interesting battles that we'll talk about a little bit later on here on the show to look at that I think will play out on Thursday. But before we get there, let's check in on the Panthers' opponent on Thursday night, the Pittsburgh Steelers, who under Mike Tomlin have won a Super Bowl and have never had a losing season. And now they enter Aaron Rodgers into the quarterback position. We'll see how things play out for them this upcoming season in the AFC North. Locked On Steelers host Chris Carter is here with me today to break down what's been going on during camp and preseason and to provide some expectations heading into Thursday night's game from the Pittsburgh perspective. We'll bring on Chris Carter right now here on Locked On Panthers. Chris Carter, he is the host of Locked On Steelers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Check him out over on YouTube and wherever you listen to your favorite podcast, and follow him on socials at Carter Critiques. Panthers-Steelers, Thursday night, the preseason finale for both teams here in Uptown Charlotte. I want to get his perspective on what's going on in Pittsburgh. First off, man, how you doing? How's camp been? How's your summer? You ready for the season to get going?
Oh, I'm great, man. I got married this summer, so I had a great little off season there. Then jumped right into training camp. So it was a hot one at training camp, and but it's always fun, man. Latrobe, Pennsylvania, where the Steelers go for St. Vincent College to get away, and you do that for like 3.5 weeks. You come right back. We're back in Pittsburgh now, but it's an exciting time. I think there's a lot of changes for the Steelers. You don't always see as many changes as they did this past season, and it certainly made the lead up to this season really interesting to talk about.
Yeah, and that's something that Carolina used to do. They used to go down to Spartanburg, to Wofford College, and I know a lot of fans, at least in the upstate of South Carolina, they miss that. I miss it too, because it's been, honestly, it's a lot easier for your boy, because I live up here in Charlotte, to go about 10 minutes from the crib to go to practice and all of that. But there was something charming about having training camp down there in Spartanburg, and then David Tepper had to go ahead and move things up here. He wanted to move them still in South Carolina, but we know how that played out as far as that's going. But unfortunately, that's not still the case. But cool to still know that teams like the Chiefs, like the Steelers, still do that and have a true training camp every year. But you talk about change. We sat here for a minute and we're wondering, what's Pittsburgh going to do at quarterback? Is Aaron Rodgers still going to play ball or not? And he decided that he wants to be a Pittsburgh Steeler, and he, of course, is a Pittsburgh Steeler heading into this season. How's that gone so far? What's your overall thoughts on that marriage between Aaron Rodgers, Mike Tomlin, and the Steelers at large?
Aaron Rodgers, when he went to the Jets, go back and look at the contract they handed him. They basically handed him the keys. They made him one of the highest paid players in the league. They gave him a lot of money. They said, hey, we're gonna hire you the coordinator you want. We're gonna hire receivers that you want. None of that has happened in Pittsburgh. He's making about $13 million this year, 19 if he hits a lot of incentives. They've so far traded for or signed no wide receivers that he's familiar with. There's no coordinator. He's coming in and working with Arthur Smith, who is excited to work with him, and they are adjusting their offense to his skill set. But I think Aaron Rodgers he's even kind of said this. He's just excited to be one of the guys. He just wants to just kind of be around, enjoy being with an organization that is well put together. And while he hasn't said it like that exactly, I think you get that kind of impression just from his time with the Jets. There's a lot of chaos. You know, the Jets are an organization that has a lot of turnover coach-wise and everything else. The Steelers have had 3 head coaches since 1969 and have 6 Super Bowls during that span. So I think Aaron Rodgers, at least just from how I've talked to him at training camp, at mini camp, and now we're out of training camp back at the Steelers facility. I've just gotten the sense that he's kind of just really appreciative of how Mike Tomlin is as a head coach, how the organization is run top to bottom, and he's enjoying being part of a process to help develop what is still, despite him and the addition of DK Metcalf, a young offense. 4 of their starting 5 offensive linemen are going to be on their rookie deals, third year or younger. Pat Freiermuth, Calvin Austin, Roman Wilson, Caleb Johnson, Jalen Warren, all those guys in their mid to early 20s. I think there's a lot of excitement for what the team can do, and for Aaron. I think Aaron Rodgers is particularly excited to just be one of the guys instead of the guy that everything circles around.
That's so interesting because, like, let's not pretend that Aaron wasn't a chaos agent of his own in New York. Like, I know things didn't get off to the way they wanted to work out as far as with the 4 snaps before he tore his Achilles in that Monday night game. And then last year was a disaster. But like you mentioned, like they hired Nathaniel Hackett. That was wild. They brought in Randall Cobb. They went out there, brought in all these dudes who he had worked with, and it didn't work out. So it's interesting that that's something that Pittsburgh's decided, like, we're not going to do that, which makes sense because there's the reason why the Steelers are the Steelers and the Jets are, well, the Jets. When you look at just the foundation that's around them, because you bring up some young guys on the rookie deals there on the offensive line, you bring up DK Metcalf, that big offseason acquisition via trade. Does it feel like the foundation is there for Aaron to have success in Pittsburgh this year?
I think so, because they're not leaning on him to be the guy that's going to command the offense. I think he's going to command the field. Like, he's going to see the defense, make adjustments, and they're going to give him his cerebral ability to adjust what he's based off of what he sees, because that absolutely that doesn't go away as a player, right? Like, your arm may go away, your legs may go away, but your brain is always up there and you're always thinking. And so that's what Aaron Rodgers, I've always thought, is his best asset. You know, even though I think he's one of the best pure passers and has one of the best releases ever, I've always thought the best thing he had on his side was, when you look at his efficiency numbers, I think his career-wise, his interception rate lowest all time in NFL history, passer rating highest all time in NFL history, and a part of that is because he is so good at reading defenses. And what the Steelers are trying to do, I think, is build a layered offense where he's going to have his chances at big plays for DK Metcalf. I really like how Roman Wilson's come along in training camp, second-year guy out of Michigan at wide receiver. They've also added a lot at tight end. Pat Freiermuth's not only their guy, but Jonnu Smith, the guy that set Dolphins records last year at tight end. He is expansive in what he is doing for this offense. And also Darnell Washington, a third-year guy who is just a mammoth of a human being at 6'7". Like, he's listed at 260. He's more like 290, and he runs really well. And when he's in the end zone, if you throw him a fade, 90% of the time he's going to catch it. There's a lot of weapons to work with there. No official, like, superstar number 2 type of guy, but I think that's where Aaron Rodgers is going to be happy. And then the bottom line is they've invested a ton into this offensive line. 2 first-round picks in the last 4 years, or last 3 years, excuse me, with Broderick Jones and Troy Fautanu at tackle, a second-round pick in center Zach Frazier, who I thought was a top 5 center in the NFL last year, and a 4th-rounder in Mason McCormick, who really came along last year. They're going to try to run the ball with those guys and rookie running back Caleb Johnson, veteran Jalen Warren. And I think the thing is they're going to want that balance. They're not going to say, hey, Aaron, lead the NFL in passing, throw the most times in the NFL, do all that. They're going to say, hey, we're going to run the ball, we're going to pass the ball, we're going to try to keep this as close to 55-45 as far as the breakdown, maybe 60-40, but they're going to try to have that balanced attack so that Aaron Rodgers, at the end of the day, he's averaging more like 30 passes a game than 40 passes a game. And that's what they're going to try to keep it down at. And some of those 30 passes, a lot of those are going to be play action, over the middle, using the run as a factor to give him more space.
Yeah, and like Zach Frazier's a guy I know last year in the draft, that was someone who I thought Carolina should be looking at center, as they had some questions as far as who's going to be the starting center a year ago in 2024. And then, I mean, goodness, Darnell Washington, like, he was on the same Georgia team as Brock Bowers. Like, that guy's a mountain of a man. How long are we going to do this with Aaron? Is it just 1 year and done? Is it we'll see after the season's over, depending on how things play out? Like, what do you think?
This is a one and done thing, unless somehow Aaron Rodgers gets through this season and they like make it to the AFC Championship game and fall just short, and he says, "I got one more in me." That's like the only way I see that happening. But I think there was kind of an agreement, like honestly, from what, and I've said this on my show. Well, a lot of people were wondering, oh, is he going to sign? Is it going to be this? The Steelers knew since March. Like it was basically a done deal. Aaron Rodgers just like, let me be myself for a little while. I'll come ready. And he has. He's quickly got the offense up to speed. He's working with them a lot. I like what he's done there. So I think that they're kind of content with this being a 1-year thing. If it's not a 1-year thing, they'll sign him to another 1-year deal. It's not that expensive. But the bottom line is, and I say this with all the moves the Steelers made this year, they went and signed Aaron Rodgers. They traded for DK Metcalf. They traded for Jalen Ramsey. They traded for Jonnu Smith. They've signed this guy, moved that guy. They've added all these new players. The one thing that they did not touch in all their assets was their 2026 draft picks, which now they are slated to have 12 draft picks based off of all of the comp picks that they allowed to go. A lot of guys that they let go into free agency, like Dan Moore, who signed a huge contract to play tackle for the Titans. They are now projected to get on top of their normal 1 through 7 picks, they have 2 third-round picks because they traded away George Pickens and got one there, but they'll have a third-round pick, so 3 third-round picks, 2 fourth-round picks, 2 fifth-round picks, 2 sixth-round picks, and 2 seventh-round picks. That's the projections right now. And with all that, the move, in my opinion, is clearly because they love this upcoming quarterback draft class. They think there's 4 or 5 guys that they are like, if these guys are available, we want the ammunition to trade up and get them. That's why they're not touching anybody. And that's why I also think it's 1 year for Aaron Rodgers, because they're saying, hey, Aaron, we really like this quarterback class. The draft is in Pittsburgh this upcoming year. And so I think they're preparing to say, hey, we're going to go all in, get the guy of our dreams, and make that our next franchise quarterback attempt. And Aaron Rodgers can, if he has a good year, like if he has a Brett Favre year where they get to the NFC Championship game and lose, or the AFC Championship game and lose, maybe he says, hey, that's a fine way to end my career, because ultimately I think next year, unless they don't like this quarterback class after the year plays out, they're picking a quarterback.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, people talk about Garrett Nussmeier down at LSU right now. I mean, Archie came out and said that Arch is not going to be coming out. And I mean, I would believe that. I've not really been a believer that he's going to be a 1-year starter and done, especially when you're looking at Jaden Daniels, Bo Nix, guys who played a lot of football, come and have success immediately in the NFL. And it's the Mannings. Like, they're just not going to move like everybody else moves. But that is an interesting element that Pittsburgh is hosting the draft. So they probably want to have somebody there on the marquee who they can sell to the rest of the city once that weekend is over. But we talk a lot about the Rodgers part of things. What about what's going on in training camp? Take a quick pause, talk more about that, and look ahead to Thursday here with Chris Carter and me, Julian Council, on Locked On Panthers. This episode is presented by Yahoo Fantasy. It's the best time of the year. NFL kickoff is almost here, and that means fantasy football season is back in full swing. And this year, Yahoo Fantasy is turning things up with a fantasy football experience like never before. This year, me and Locked On NFL are playing on Yahoo Fantasy, and you should too, whether you're a first-timer or a veteran making your millionth league. To celebrate 28 years of fantasy football greatness, Yahoo Fantasy is dropping 28 big new features over 28 days throughout August. To kick it off, they just dropped Yahoo Fantasy Guillotine Leagues, a killer new way to play fantasy football on Yahoo, where the lowest scoring team gets eliminated each week until there's one team left standing. With the season around the corner, now is the time to get your league together and give this new mode a try. If you're more into the classics, you can still play in head-to-head private leagues or join a public league. Stay tuned for more killer announcements and start playing Yahoo Fantasy Football now at yahoofantasy.com/LockedOnNFL. All right, Chris, looking at camp the last couple of weeks up there in Latrobe and Pittsburgh, what stood out to you, one thing offensively and one thing defensively, that you think would be a key to Pittsburgh Steelers season going into the year?
I think one thing you're going to see is a different style of defense, the way that they have called it. In the past, so the Steelers developed an identity with TJ Watt, where in his first 5 years in the NFL, they led the NFL in sacks. It was unprecedented. They led the NFL from 2017, 2018, 19, 20, 21, and I think 22 was the year. So up to 2021 from 2017, 5 straight years leading the NFL in sacks, because all they did was bring heat, and they said, if you beat us, you're going to beat us while we're bringing our best. When Terrell Austin took over as defensive coordinator at 2022, he was the DB's coach. He switched it up. He said, hey, we're going to trust that TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith, Cam Hayward, they win their one-on-ones, but we're going to make things complex in the secondary. And for the most part, it's worked. They've been a top 10 defense in all 3 years of his being a coordinator, but you saw the last year or so, last maybe year and a half, teams stopped challenging Minkah Fitzpatrick, who was a 3-time All-Pro safety for them on the deep ball. I bring this up in our division preview, and I bring this up all the time for the Steelers, but Minkah Fitzpatrick, even though he had just one interception over the past 2 years combined, teams over the last year only challenged him on deep balls 4 times. All 4 times were incomplete passes, according to Sports Information Systems. And so they said, it's great that we have Minkah. He's awesome, but if we're paying $20 million to a guy in the secondary, that guy needs to be able to create turnovers, and it's nothing against him, but we need a guy who can do that. So let's get some veterans to come in at free safety. They went and got Juan Thornhill, Chuck Clark to just kind of, hey, keep the top on the defense. Your job is to just do that. The money then went to Jalen Ramsey, who now is going to be a stud at the cornerback position for this team. I know a lot of people look at, his time in Miami wasn't that great. They are going to use him a lot differently. He's going to be not just taking number ones. He's going to be lining up in the slot, moving all over, left outside, right outside, slot. He is going to be doing so much. And with the investments they've made into the run defense, first-round pick Derek Harmon, watch out for him. He's a starter. Cam Hayward's back. Keanu Benton's going to be back. And I think they're going to have a force up there. If they're able to stuff the run, you're going to be in a lot of third and longs this year against this Steelers team. They're going to run a lot more press man than they have in the past several years because now they'll trust Ramsey, Porter, and Slay as their top 3 cornerbacks to cover. And then if they're pressing and manning you up, if the quarterbacks have to hold on to the ball, where the last few years they've been able to just get the pass out quick because they couldn't. The Steelers had to rely on zone. And that's going to force some quarterbacks to have to trust their O-lines to hold up for a longer period of time against TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith, Cam Hayward, now Derek Harmon. And the Steelers are also going to be sending blitzes a lot more this year, which is something they haven't really done with Terrell Austin. But in training camp, that's what I'm seeing the most. They're sending heat. They're being aggressive. They want to be the bullies on defense that dictate your pace of play. If they can stuff the run, I think that's going to thing that keys that off. So watch for that to be something that really develops. If the Steelers are going to be really good this year, that's going to be a big reason why.
Okay. So that's what's going on defensively. I mean, offensively, you talk about, Rodgers is in there. Some of the young guys, like how has DK kind of fit in there so far?
DK has been, I think they see him as an elite wide receiver. And I know that, and I think they see him as a guy that just hasn't had the proper opportunity to flourish and show all his skills. But Aaron Rodgers is connecting with him a lot. Early on, it was just a lot of slants in practice. And I think that's something that Aaron Rodgers loves to hit. He loves to see through your zone, bam, hit you right behind it and let his receiver run. But now they're starting to hit their comeback routes. Now they're starting to hit their go routes and their posts and their corners. And I think that's something that DK Metcalf is excited to do with a quarterback like Aaron Rodgers. DK Metcalf, the reason the Steelers went and got rid of George Pickens, he didn't refine his game. Pickens, phenomenal catcher of the football. When the ball's in the air and it's a contested catch, that's one of the guys that you want going up and getting it. But the problem was he didn't do all the little things that they kept tasking him to do. They wanted him to be a more complete blocker, be a better route runner, start things. First of all, show up on time and stuff. DK Metcalf does all of that. And I think that's what they wanted, a more well-rounded number 1 guy in their offense that everyone can not only say, hey, he's a talented guy, but also, hey, he's a guy that we should look up to for his work ethic. And that's something that DK Metcalf brings. I think with Aaron Rodgers and him as a number 1 wide receiver, he's going to get his opportunities. I could see him getting 1,000 yards and maybe 8 touchdowns this year. But I don't think he's going to get too high, crazy numbers because I don't think the Steelers are going to be throwing the ball a crazy amount. I also think Aaron Rodgers, with his efficiency, he's going to spread the ball around a lot, and especially to those Steelers tight ends. And watch out for those 2 small receivers, Calvin Austin and Roman Wilson. They're quick, they're fast, they run faster than 4.4 speed. And they've shown if they get behind you, or if they run a crossing route and you don't get inside leverage, they can be really dangerous. I see Aaron Rodgers spreading that around, and DK Metcalf kind of getting to play off of that a bit.
All right, last one for you here. Thursday night, Panthers-Steelers, 7:00 Eastern time. And both teams are in the East time zone, so I didn't really need to say that. But either way, Panthers are not going to play their starters, so going to be some backups trying to earn a final roster spot. Pittsburgh, what's the plan there, and anything in particular you're looking at on Thursday?
I think that it's interesting you say that because I was just at Steelers practice on Tuesday, and Mike Tomlin, who had sat pretty much the majority of the veteran starters, like everyone, the only 4 people he said are being held out from starting if they're healthy are Aaron Rodgers, DK Metcalf, TJ Watt, and Cam Hayward. But Jalen Ramsey, Joey Porter, Darius Slay, Alex Highsmith, a lot of these other guys, they haven't played. Pat Freiermuth, they haven't even played in preseason. They all might play. And I think because Mike Tomlin said he kind of wants to see some synergy from some of the guys out there. But he also kind of noted it depends on what the Panthers do. So if the Panthers are resting their starters, I anticipate the Steelers to do the same thing. The one group that you'll probably see the most of is the young offensive line, because they have Broderick Jones starting at left tackle for the first time in his 3-year career. He's been a right tackle for the last 2 because they were waiting for Dan Moore to kind of get to the end of his rookie contract so he can make big money and get them a comp pick. And then you have Troy Fautanu. He was the first-round pick last year, but got lost early in the season and to injury, and now he's playing right tackle. Looks really good. Zach Frazier at center, Mason McCormick at guard. That's the group that I think you'll see the most out of. That'll be real starters for the Steelers. And I think it's going to be interesting because if they're the Panthers and you want to improve your trenches, the Steelers want to improve their trenches. This will be a great chance because those guys, and then guys like Derek Harmon and Keanu Benton and Y.A. Black, all young rookie contract defensive tackles, they're also going to be out there. So Steelers, I think the most that you'll see out of them if the Panthers are playing all their backups is the Steelers will bring out their trench guys and say, hey, you guys need to control the line of scrimmage a bit today.
Yeah, no, it's going to be all backups. That's what Dave Canales said after the game on Saturday, and he talked about it again on Tuesday that, yeah, it's going to be backups. So we'll see how some of the backups in Carolina match up against, it looks like, some of the starters on Pittsburgh as far as the offensive line goes. But he's Chris Carter of Locked On Steelers, does a great job there. Check him out on YouTube, wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. Also follow him over on social at Carter Critiques. Chris, appreciate your time today, man.
Thanks, Julian.
Absolutely. Take a quick pause, come back here, and give you some updates from what Dave Canales had to say on Tuesday afternoon here in Charlotte. Have you ever decided at the last minute to head to a ball game with friends or family? Maybe it's game day and you suddenly realize you want to be in the stands. That's exactly where Game Time comes in. It's the easiest way to grab last minute tickets without the stress. With the money you save on tickets, you can splurge on food, drinks, merch, or even invite a bigger group. Game Time makes it possible. Game Time makes buying tickets fast and simple. Prices on the app actually drop the closer you get to the first pitch. They've got incredible last-minute deals, clear seat views, and a lowest price guarantee that takes the worry out of buying. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Thanks again to Chris Carter from Locked On Steelers for joining the show today to provide an update of what's going on up there in Pittsburgh with Aaron Rodgers, Mike Tomlin, and the Steelers. And not going to see their starters, it sounds like, but it was interesting that potentially we could see Jalen Ramsey. We could potentially see Alex Highsmith, the Charlotte alum, and we could see some starters on the offensive line, which I do think now heading into that game is going to be an area that I'm focused on. Like Bobby Brown III has played a decent amount of snaps, especially the first week of the preseason against Cleveland with the Panthers second team unit. We saw him come in at the end of that second drive last week with the ones. I'm curious how much work he gets on Thursday night. You look at guys like Jared Harrison Hunt, Cam Robinson, if he's healthy, Shai Tuttle, and Jaden Crumley. Like, there is a job to be won, maybe multiple jobs to be won when it comes to the interior of the offensive line or defensive line here in Carolina. And if the Steelers are going to start out with their starters on that O-line, if they're going to get some good work, then yeah, you want to see what they look like. And also, Mason Rudolph will be the starting quarterback, I suppose. And he has not been a great starter in the NFL, but he does have plenty of starting experience and helped them get to the playoffs a couple of years ago after they benched Kenny Pickett. So that's going to be a decent enough challenge for this young Panthers secondary. So if it's Corey Thornton, Shamar Bartholomew getting the starts and Mike Jack not playing, of course, J.C. Horn will not be out there on Thursday. Good opportunities for those guys to show one last thing out on tape, in particular, Bartholomew. You look at Lathan Ransom, the rookie safety from Ohio State. He's going to get an opportunity against a veteran quarterback. And I'm not trying to talk up Mason Rudolph, but yeah, you might get a decent look with him out there. So we'll see who Pittsburgh puts out there. We already know what Carolina's going to put out there, which is not going to be the starters. Now, Jalen Coker, who was sick last week, dealing with an illness where he missed joint practice on Thursday in Houston and missed the game on Saturday. Mike Kay of the Charlotte Observer did ask Dave Canales on Tuesday if he'll be playing on Thursday, and he will be playing. So that is a good thing to get him another opportunity. We'll see Hunter Renfrow out there, see David Moore. Bryson Tremaine is a guy who's continued to make plays, and it's going to be tough. I'm going to talk about, I believe, next Monday or at least Tuesday morning prior to roster cutdown. I'm going to put out my initial 53-man roster projection, the final one I'm going to do ahead of cutdown day next Tuesday at 4 p.m. Eastern time. And I'm trying to figure out how Bryson Tremaine's not going to be on this team. Other than the fact that like they have just too many receivers and you can't keep every single one of them. But like you look at it, it's hard to not say that that guy has earned a spot on the team, especially if he goes out there and makes some more plays on Thursday night, where Jack Plummer will be the starting quarterback for Carolina. Bryce Perkins will also get some reps, but Dave Canales talked about it being a big opportunity for Jack to be the starter again, like he started last year. The preparation he had heading into that game against New England to start the preseason a year ago. Bryce Perkins, will see what he has, as he was the UFL MVP, and he does have some interesting connections here to Carolina. And if he plays well, maybe he gets the opportunity to be QB3, as in on the practice squad in Carolina this upcoming season instead of Jack Plummer. But Jack's going to get plenty of work, and we'll see what Carolina's second team can do against maybe some of the Steelers starters offensively and defensively on Thursday night. I'll talk more about this tomorrow as far as what I'm looking for, things to watch in that game on Thursday night here in Uptown Charlotte. But again, Jalen Coker, he'll be back out there. Tommy Trimble looks like he's trending towards being ready for week one. Still some things physically he needs to be able to do for him to be able to go week one. Damian Lewis does not seem to be looking good for him at this point in time. And if that is the case, I would expect if Chandler Zavala is back, and he should be able to go on Thursday. So if he's going to start on Thursday, it would be Brady Christensen at left tackle, Zavala at left guard, Cade Mays at center, right guard Jatir Carter, who had a scary leg injury on Saturday, but was able to bounce back, come back in that game. He was out of practice the last 2 days, so he should be good to go. He'll be at right guard. Then right tackle Yash Nyman. Will be interesting to see how Zavala plays and if he would end up being the starter week one down in Jacksonville if Damian Lewis is out, and if the Carolina Panthers think that they got to do anything more there. Do they have to put him on IR to start the season, that being Damian Lewis, or will they be good to just wait it out a couple of weeks and not have to go through those links where he'll be out for the first 4 games of the season? We'll find out more of that once we get to next week, where they'll make any sort of designation for guys like that who are injured. So going to be interesting to see how things play out on Thursday. I'll be there at the stadium. I will be giving y'all a live show again from the press box and give you my thoughts on how things played out that evening and looking ahead to roster cut down next week. But again, thank you to Chris Carter of Locked On Steelers for joining today's show. But that's going to wrap up this edition of the Locked On Panthers podcast, part of Locked On Podcast Network, hosted by yours truly, Julian Council. Again, y'all, subscribe or follow the show free over on YouTube or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. And be sure to follow me, Julian Council, over on Twitter and Blue Sky's weekly Wednesday mailbag is back on September 3rd, heading into the week one matchup in Jacksonville. In the meantime, you can at me or DM me over on Twitter at Julian Council, or at me over on Blue Sky at Julian Council. If any questions, any thoughts you have on the Carolina Panthers. But in the meantime, be safe, be happy, be whole. As always, keep pounding, and I'll talk to y'all tomorrow as I give you the things to watch heading into Thursday night's preseason game against the Pittsburgh Steelers.